Hello, my name is Tim Black. Welcome to the show. Today I have a special guest. She was a Cleveland City Councilor from 06 to 08, an Ohio State Senator from 08 until 2014. In 2016, she became president and public face of Our Revolution. In December of that year, she served as a member of the DNC Unity Reform Commission in D.C. She was named the national co-chair of the Bernie Sanders 2020 presidential campaign, and now she is running for the congressional seat in Ohio's 11th District. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend of mine, Senator Nina Turner. But I do want to talk about the campaign financing because I saw that hit piece they put out on you.
Yeah, 1,000 of those dollars came from a dear friend of mine of almost 30 years. Almost 30 years. And this person is not a registered lobbyist, so that is a lie. But even if he were, he has been my friend for almost 30 years. Out of the millions of dollars this campaign has raised, you're going to laser focus on $1,200 plus. Yep. Meanwhile, my number one competition, most of their money is coming in that way, but they don't say anything. So thank you, Tim Black, for allowing me to say, I want everybody to know this has been a friend of mine for almost 30 years. He is not a registered corporate lobbyist, but even if he was, he is my friend.
It's like the whole spirit of campaign financing reform that we talk about in progressive circles, and this sounds like something petty, more like a vendetta, more like just a last minute smear, I think, against your campaign.
Yeah, it is. And it's not what the intent of this movement or campaign finance reform should be. We're talking about mega players who try to buy politicians on a regular basis. We're not talking, because all corporate lobbyists may or may not be, I'm not here to say that all corporate lobbyists are bad. What we're talking about is systemic. We're not talking about individuals. We're talking about a system that rolls, that marches to the beat of the well-connected and the wealthiest people to undermine the good things that we need to make sure that people have a good life. That is it. There could be when I worked for the Cleveland Municipal School District, by way of example, I was the director of government affairs. I was a registered lobbyist on the state and federal level. But guess who I was lobbying for?
The people.
Cleveland's kids.
There you go.
So so at some point, even for our movement, we got to have these deeper conversations. It is the who, what is the intent, what is their track record over a long period of time? Who are they representing? But that publication did not necessarily, they didn't necessarily want to know truth in that moment. That person is a dear friend of mine, not a registered lobbyist. And even or it is not the type of corporate lobbyist that we're talking about. He's not even a corporate lobbyist. I can't say that enough. But even if he were, he's my friend.
Gotcha.
And he's not, and he doesn't work for, anybody, he works for good causes. As a matter of fact, he works with me. And it's just really sad how they're just, they're just grasping at this time. Black, do you know one of the dark money groups that she invited in here sent out a mailing saying that I'm against Medicare for all, immigration reform, and increasing the minimum wage?
Yes.
Now, who on Mars would even believe that? And we got the receipts.
That's something I've seen people float. Okay, in this particular wording, she didn't say Medicare for all, but she did here. So are you suggesting that over 5 years, as long as I've known Nina Turner, one of her main focuses has been Medicare for all? I don't know what's out there in the water. I don't know what's in the air, but I feel like there's something that there is definitely a narrative they're trying to push, which is they can't trust you. So you support Medicare for all, correct?
Oh, unequivocally. And I know some in our circles where she said access. Look, sometimes people say access. I don't mean access in the way that the people who don't want people to have Medicare for all. So sometimes I might not get the wording quite right in terms of, I mean unfettered access. Can I put the word unfettered on access? I mean a system where there's no co-pays, no premiums, no deductibles, and people flat out have health care in the United States of America. That's what I mean. And I have been side by side with Senator Bernard Sanders on this issue, and I continue to be. And as a matter of fact, just to walk people down memory lane, one of the reasons why I supported Senator Sanders is I was having a flashback about my mama and how she died without health insurance. Two things attracted me to the senator besides what he did in 2010 when he did that magnificent 8.5-hour filibuster against the extension of the Bush tax cuts. You may remember that, Black, and some people who watch you may remember that he stood up even to a Democratic president and said, do not extend those tax cuts because they hurt the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class. But as I assessed Senator Bernie Sanders and all of the things that he was standing for, the two things that caught my eye the most because of my lived experience was Medicare for all, without equivocation, and making colleges, college for all, because I'm a first generation college graduate, and hell, I'm still paying off student debt. My son, us combined, have almost $100,000 worth of student debt. I know how important higher education is to help one change the trajectory of their life, or people changing the trajectory of their lives. It is not, 100% a guarantee, but it gives you a more solid foundation. Now, notwithstanding that, depending on what kind of job you get and what happens to you over your lifetime, you may be paying it off through your 70s or 80s. Sure. But I digressed on that. Those were the two major things that really helped me to make up my mind about Senator Sanders when he got into that race and announced his candidacy in the latter part of 2015. So hear it. Can you, as Chris Tucker said in the movie, can you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Besides the words that are coming out of my mouth, go check my record. So if I say access every now and then, I'm not talking about that empty access that people who don't really want to see Medicare for all be a reality. I'm talking about unfettered, must-have universal health care in these United States of America. No co-pays, no deductibles, no premiums. Now, Black, I'm being crystal clear here.
That's crystal clear. I don't know how.
But people in the back seats, in the back row, who don't understand that,
don't give in. Don't buy into the false narratives. You know what you know. You believe what you believe, and of course, the proof is in the pudding. But up until then, you got to have some belief in people. You can't second guess everything.
Everything they say. I mean, sometimes people. Every word, and just, it boggles my mind that some of these same people that want to stand up and critique every single word in that way would be the same people. I bet you, look, they not perfect. And if they are, God bless them. But what risk are they taking in the public eye? Very few of them are taking risk in the public eye. So as President, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt and his man in the arena, while the folks in the sideline talk about the strong man, I'm paraphrasing them, the current police step into the arena. And in this case, the strong woman that had the audacity to step into the arena. Y'all on the sidelines always trying to find fault and talking smack instead of focusing in, let the main things be the main things. Like you talk about that all the time. We ain't got time for this, getting sidetracked on that. Let's focus on the mission of our movement. And that is the pursuit of life, liberty, and everybody's happiness. That's what we out for. And you can put anything in those categories: the environment, healthcare, jobs, being able to unionize, people being able to have paid family medical leave, Green New Deal, just add your stuff. But that is what Sister Turner is for. And just because we may agree most of the time don't mean we're going to agree all the time. So let's get this straight too.
Right. Absolutely. And there may be times with disagreements, see things different ways, but we can have that conversation. Okay. We can have that conversation and we can move on from there. And speaking of that, we know we talk about here on this channel reparations often, and I know I've stated that I believe Nina Turner supports reparations. I've seen it in press releases and other documentation. For the record, Nina, how do you feel about reparations?
I absolutely support reparations for American descendants of slaves. It must happen. I do support H.R. 40, of which, our beloved congressman from the great state of Michigan. He's no longer with us, but he had been fighting for even just that since the 80s.
Yes.
And I'm glad to see other Congress members take that up. Congressman John Conyers, I'm glad to see other members take that up, and it's finally getting some traction in the Congress. That is the least they can do, is to pass that so we can study it. And I'm not being sarcastic. We got a lifelong study, but I understand that is important to do. And experts like Professor Sandy Darity and Professor Mullins and others like Dr.
Derek Hamilton.
Oh my God. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Derek Hamilton, who's a stratification economist. As a matter of fact, he's on my policy, team. Dr. Hamilton and other people like that. And then the grassroots people in that movement that I know sometimes there's some tension there, but we got a lot of grassroots folks who have been working on this for a very long time and absolutely deserve their credit here as well. Yes, this country does owe, and we got to figure out a way to make sure that that is repaid. About 2 or 3 months ago, down payment on it, because you can't never repay for that kind of atrocity, can never be paid off, but they ought to be putting some down payments on it. And the down payment includes, yes, direct checks. The down payment includes some programming. The down payment can be whatever we envision it to be, but it must be done, even though the debt is so heavy, it can never totally be repaid. Because how do you repay generations and generations of chattel slavery? And then after that, black codes and Jim Crow and redlining, and even in the great recession of 2008, black folks lost 50% of their wealth because of the market crash, where most people, whether they're black or white or somewhere in between that, most of the wealth of anybody that considers themselves middle class is their largest debt. It's their home. But black people suffer disproportionately, as we always do, socially, economically, environmentally, racially, you name it. The United States of America owes a debt, and it must be dealt with. Truth and reconciliation, and then payment of that debt, even though that is going to be necessary for as long as this country exists, because there is no way, and even in the periods of World War I, debt, peonage, and all that kind of stuff, some of that stuff black was still going on, even though slavery had been abolished.
Absolutely.
The kidnapping of, taking on apprentices and making black people, particularly black men, work that the whole time, still working as if they were enslaved. So we're not just talking about what happened centuries ago. We're talking about what has happened in the span of even the 20th century, and the hell we're still catching in the 21st century, the income and racial wealth gap. So those things must be dealt with, and there must be dominance. And let's start with Black Wall Street. Can we? There are 3 elders that are still alive. One is 100 years old. I think one is 106 years old. And I forget how old the third person is, but they span, 100, I think 103 and 106. But 3 elders who actually were children when this happened in the 1920s are still alive. And they testified before Congress. And what have we done? Like right now, to repay just them? Can we just start with them?
Right.
And their descendants and all of the family members that were impacted by the terrorism, the white terrorism that happened during Black Wall Street.
There's been a couple of articles, I think we talked about one earlier. The one that's really catching the minds and hearts of the progressives that's really got us upset and concerned is these new polling data they say they have that shows your closest rival for the 11th congressional seat is closing into like a 7-point gap. And we know previously that was much wider. Is there any other information about that polling? What does your campaign say about that?
I mean, you got to consider the source of that poll. People should look at who did that poll. They were so wrong in 2020. At this point, I want supporters of this campaign and this movement, don't get sidetracked. Because at this point, with 19 days left, it's not about the polls. It is about turning out the vote. It is about time, talent, and treasure. And I have one of the best pollsters in the United States of America. I am still very strong in this race. I want them to hear that from me. Very strong in this race, still double-digit strong in this race by a large margin. But don't get distracted by the polling, because polling is only snapshot in time. Even, my poll that came out at the end of May, early June, that was a snapshot in time. Yes, was I very happy about what that poll revealed? Absolutely. We all should be happy, but that doesn't mean we rest on our laurels, because things change over time, and that's okay too. What is the most important thing in this particular moment is GOTV. And Black, I will tell you that, we just had an FEC deadline just yesterday on the 14th, July 14th. And we asked the grassroots and other, because I got some folks with some means too rocking with this campaign. We need everybody, but majority of the donors to this campaign are grassroots people, people who punch in every day or just work regularly every day, but I got some folks who rocking in that higher echelons too, who breathe in some of that rare air, who understand that the way the United States is rolling is untenable, and we need good people on our side of consciousness, no matter if they were in the poor, the working poor, barely middle class, or in that 10%. 3%, 5%, 1%. We need people who stand up and say that this system does not work as it is, and we got to turn it around. But I digress. Let me tell you something. We asked the donors to this campaign from all walks of life and all means to help us hit $100,000 before midnight, and they did just that. Matter of fact, we went over it. We blew past it. So I am saying thank you on your show. My first opportunity. I did record a video today. But I want to say thank you to every single donor, from the people who are sacrificing by giving and to the people who have great means, for pouring into this campaign and this mission, and also this, because I'm not running based on my proximity to power, my proximity to relationships. I'm running on purpose and policy. I am running to help to change the material conditions of the people. And I am so glad that so many people across this country, all over the country, Black, we have raised money from every state, plus the District of Columbia. We have raised 85% of the donations that have come to me from the great state of Ohio have been donated by people who actually live in the 11th Congressional District. So I want people who are supporting us from all over the country to know that if somebody give their $1 or their $11 or their $27, oh, you best believe they coming to vote. That is a beautiful thing. And that is what the enemy is trying to stop. Because they know that we are part of a conscious-minded movement that is working to change the system as it exists right now. That's really what they fear. And so they're bumping up against me in a very vicious way. But guess what? We are bumping back. We are fighting. We're trying to get people out to vote. And that's what is needed. In the last 19 days, I really want our supporters to focus. Don't get sidetracked. Focus on, ask yourself, what can I do in the next 19 days to help Sister Turner make it over the finish line and win this race? That's really what I need more than anything, Black.
Absolutely. Folks, go to ninaturner.com to do that and become a part of the campaign. You can donate, you can text bank, phone bank. There's other ways to get involved. And at the end of this, we're going to talk about get out the vote efforts. I want to talk about endorsements real quick, because I read about the plain dealer endorsement, was major endorsement, and the things they said about Nina were very flattering. She said she's shown she isn't afraid to stand up to power and to partisan shibboleths, who has the guts to say what she thinks and do what's right for her constituents and country, passionate public service, and knows the issues, the personalities, the challenges better than anyone else in this race. Even though that endorsement is so major, I'm hearing others say that what's happening is sort of like a battle between progressives and moderate Democrats, and you and your leading challenger are proxies for that. What do you say to that correlation or that analogy that you actually, this is Hillary versus Bernie all over again?
That's what the national media is gravitating to, but on the ground, there's no door that we're knocking on, and I do knock on doors as well as I donate to this campaign too. I'm a donor as well. Nobody that I knock on the door of is saying, proxy war between, Secretary Clinton and Senator Bernie Sanders. Nobody's saying that. They want to know, what am I willing to do when I get there? I was just in a parking lot just earlier today when I was, out just getting me a bite to eat, and a gentleman who lives in the 11th Congressional District. Matter of fact, he lives on Dove, and his name is Mr. Alexander. Look, I even remember his name. Right. He just said, you know what? I am going to vote for you, even though I don't need it. He said, I'm retired. And pretty much, I worked hard and I got mine. I'm paraphrasing him. He said, but I am going to vote for you because I'm tired of people playing games. I want somebody that's going to stand up for the people. Here's my granddaughter. He had, his granddaughter was an adult. But he said, I'm voting for you for her. Mr. Henry Alexander. And he said he's tired of the games. And he's tired of politicians who are in this for themselves. He said, I am going to vote for you because you are a fighter. And I know that you're going to fight for the people. You're going to fight for people like my granddaughter. He said, I'm over it, pretty much. And so that's what I'm here. He didn't, in that conversation, we talked for about 6 minutes. He never brought up some proxy war. So people in this district are not thinking that way. It's the mainstream. And some people benefit from trying to make that the narrative, so that they can distract people from what really we should be having a discussion about, why the city of Cleveland's poverty rate, highest rate of poverty in the country of a city of its size, The greater Akron area, 23% poverty. How women, half the women in this entire district, both, the Cuyahoga County and Summit County, poverty. Those are the things we should be talking about. How to get people $15 an hour minimum wage. How do we get the president to cancel student debt right now, which will have a class justice issue and a racial justice issue because Black women hold the largest amount of student debt. Those are the things they care about. Crime in their community, gun violence in their community, police, legal economy, jobs. But nobody that's outside of the bubble, outside of those little cliques, are talking about a proxy battle.
One of the things that grips me, Nina, is that when I hear some of your competitors being interviewed, they're not even asked about actual policy. It's like, it's all about their favoritism or they're favored by certain high-ranking officials. And that's really frustrating coming from my point of view, from a progressive point of view. That's all policy-oriented. I mean, we love you, Nina, but we also are focused on the policies that you support. People in Akron, what are some of the policies that you're going to fight for people in Akron besides Medicare for All and the ones we usually talk about?
Yeah, and I want people, the movement should hold people accountable. Everybody should hold the people they elect accountable. It's ludicrous to worship politicians to an extent that you too afraid to hold them accountable and that it's taboo. Shh, don't say nothing about that person. Don't critique that person. That is insane. We are conscious-minded, thinking people, period. And you can love elected officials. I want to be loved. I got some people who love me too. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't hold me accountable and even critique and have an opinion about leadership. Anytime you have an opinion, especially on the progressive side, people want to paint you a certain kind of way. Look, Black, I'm going to be very clear. And I've said this on this show and I'm going to say it again. I don't worship human beings. Because we all fallible and people can be challenged, whether they got a special title or not. I worship God and I serve the people. Period, point blank, as some people say, as my baby sister said, period, point blank. And if folks can't deal with that, then I get it. Otherwise, I'm real and we can have a discussion. Open heart, open mind, open door. So what are the things that people care about? They care about jobs. I hear that a lot. They do care about their health care. I know we talk about this all the time, but 1 million Ohioans lost their employer-sponsored health care because of this pandemic. We almost have 100 million people collectively who are uninsured or underinsured. They talk about the minimum wage. I talked to some sisters who work for SEI union and who has endorsed, by the way, and they do the sanitation services at the airport. And they talk about how they haven't had a raise. So they're making, above the $15 an hour. And the $15 an hour is a starting point. Right. It's the floor, not the ceiling, because there are many people who make above that. All we're saying is that minimally, that's what we're saying, minimally, the wage should be $15 an hour. And if it kept up with inflation or productivity, it'd be closer to $23 an hour. But I digress. So these particular ladies, they want other people to get a pay raise. So they support $15 an hour minimum wage. SEIU has been one of the biggest champions for that. They also want a raise. That's the kind of stuff people talk to me about. Healthcare, I met a young woman on Juneteenth. She said, Senator Turner, I'm endorsing you. She said, I have healthcare, but any day I could wake up and lose my job. She said, I have type 1 diabetes and I need my insulin to live. She said it would cost me $4,000 for a 90-day supply every 90 days. I cannot afford that. I could never afford that. So, but by the grace of God, there go I. I'm paraphrasing her. She said, I'm supporting you because we need somebody that's going to stand up for universal health care in this country. Period. So those are, crime, violence, gun violence in communities is something that comes up all the time. How are we going to make communities safer? So we both talk about police violence, what is happening at the hands of police, and also talking about what is happening in communities and why the decay is there and what can we collectively do to turn that around. That's what I hear, Black. Nothing about some proxy. Nobody's bringing up 2016 or even 2020 for that matter. Hell, they trying to survive in 2021.
It just shows how out of touch some people are. frankly, is this conversation. And I think they think it plays well for them. I don't know. Like I stated, I don't hear people talking about their policies. I hear people saying, I did a report. We did a report on some issues. And then they just let the person just slide by. But I'll save that for my own video content. Understand.
And Black, let me tell you this. I bet you they're not talking about all the deaths that happen in the county jail.
Wow.
Inmates dying in that jail. Mainly men and mainly Black men. I'm sure they're not talking about that while they keep raving about, their leadership, with direct leadership to deal with what was happening in that county jail. But I don't hear them even talking about that or questions being raised.
That's the point
about that.
And my door is open for them to come on this show since they go on other shows and somehow those questions don't get asked. I love for that person to come on here and we had that conversation, especially this new. They want to talk to you about FEC and $1,000 donation, even though you raise millions. Now they have a new PAC, I understand, that formed almost overnight to go after you, Nina. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I was warned when I got into this race that it was going to be an anybody but Nina movement, and they meant it. Just as that person laid it out to me is really coming to fruition. And it really is sad that the same people who are behind that kind of effort are the people who benefit from keeping the system as it is. But my resolve is strong. I am going to continue to fight for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. But it should be very telling, not just for people of this movement, but for people who are concerned about the rot politics, that not only are, outside dirty money coming in here at the request of my number one competitor, because as you know, The Intercept, I think it was Ryan Grimm, yes. The Intercept article about the red box, you guys can go back and read that article. He laid it out about the signaling that person put on their website to invite these groups in. And on top of them coming in here, a brand new you laid out, Black. So that's what they need to know about this person and about politics, the bad side of politics, because it does not have to be this way. I think you should do everything to win, not anything to win. And to invite outside money groups to come in and to disrupt this race in this way really is pretty sad, and it's pretty desperate too. But it's our movement they're trying to stop too. And so they think by trying to stop me, they can stop our movement. But you can't stop a conscious-minded movement. We've been the 21st century version of the progressive movement, or the conscious-minded people movement, or the justice movement. Pick your name. We are in full effect all over this country. But it is pretty sad, Black. And I have not, I've stayed on the issues as best I could. But some contrast has happened, and it's happening right now. Nina Turner, and I approve this message.
Chantel Brown. We've seen self-serving politicians like her before, using office to enrich friends, family, even themselves. On council, Brown voted to give more than $32 million in taxpayer contracts to a company connected to her boyfriend and family. She even voted to give herself a $7,000 pay raise for a part-time job on council. A slap in the face to working people. Chantel Brown, out for herself.
Early voting is on the way. August 3rd is the day, the primary day. Nina Turner, I heard you had some get out the vote efforts. Do you have any schedules you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I did. I did early vote on July the 7th. I had people both, I started off in Cuyahoga, and then that was on a Wednesday, and then I went into Akron on that Friday, and we had so many people turn out. And I was just so proud of the number of young people, especially young Black men, especially in Akron. There's a barber college there called Exceptional is the name of it. Exceptional barber college. And it's a school. And just to see so many young people, particularly Black men, but there were Black women and white men and white. It was a rainbow mosaic, but it was overwhelmingly young Black men. And that just did my heart so much joy to see that community come out in that way. So I just want to shout out that college. But yes, I do have an announcement. I want to, Black, while we at it, we just announced today that Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, baby, is coming in to the district next week, and we are going to do get out the vote in a very, very strong way. And I'm hoping that people will come and join us in that effort. She will be here on Saturday, July the 24th, and we are coming here to get in those streets, to continue to be in those streets. But yes, I am canvassing. Every single day my team is canvassing, and I am joining. I might not necessarily be there every day, but I am joining on a regular basis, at least 3-4 times a week myself, going to knock on those doors and commune with the voters. I'm doing a host of community events, and we've had volunteers come in here like from all over the country, and that really makes me feel incredibly good too, because people around the country really see hope in my candidacy, and that means a lot to me, because even though I know I won't directly be representing, they do know indirectly I will. And as the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, that what affects one directly affects us all indirectly. And it's really good that our movement sees that. And I am just overwhelmed with the kind of love and support that people are bringing Black in a positive way. They are pro me. They're not anti anybody else. And those are two different things. And there's a different type of energy. Trust
Absolutely.
me, it really, really is.
Folks, go to NinaTurner.com. It's crunch time, folks. As Nina said, don't be distracted. Let's hit the tape. Let's go through the tape. Let's make this happen. Nina, thank you for your time, sister. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Tim Black. I appreciate you so very much.
Let me ask you something. Do they know us? When I say they, I mean the talking heads on cable news. Do they know you? I mean, they talk about the world as if it's a sport. They play political games, report on our pain, rack our brain to feed the stock exchange, but do they know us? Do they know what we care about? Nope. They're too far away. They can't see us. They can't feel us. They can't relate to us. See, when you want to know what's going on in your world, trust someone who lives in your world. Subscribe.